This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, that I have to ask you it's the law to do that. Anyway, so we're gonna go. We have a couple of people who have joined more recently, so I'll go through a quick introduction of team members. So since usually it's people are hesitant to speak up, so I'll just be kind of calling on people. Scott, did you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Scott Haskins. I'm the co-principal investigator supporting all of you and Cello.
Mert?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Mert Maftugel. I'm an engineer with the asset management branch of Portland Water Bureau. And I started to work on this project with the previous phase, which was phase number 2, I think, last time around.
Rebecca? You're on mute. Okay. We can go to Yige Gao and we'll come back to Rebecca. Yige?
Hi, this is Yiga. I'm the asset manager at Gwinnett County. Just started joining us.
Okay, thank you, Yige. Craig?
Hi, this is Craig Edlund. I'm Director of Asset Management for Metropolitan Council Environmental Services, if we want to go the full big name. I've been working on UAIM, I think, since inception back in when was that, Cello? 2017 when we met down in Tampa?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
And Craig
yes,
has also been, the team lead for this group for more than a year now, right? A year and a half? 2 years.
Yep, and I think on this call, I'd like to have a conversation about that because my plate is a little overflowing. Not only am I doing about 4 different jobs, it looks like I probably will be also stepping in as the operations manager as we get a retirement coming up here.
So we have a person who's called in on the phone and also has audio active on their computer. So if you just mute your computer, it will not have the feedback. That's what happens if you have two things. It's like feedback, when you have that feedback at a concert. So thank you, Craig. Patricia, you're muted.
Hello,
thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Patricia Nick. I'm working on Team 2100. I'm a project manager on the asset management team here in the UK, working together with Rebecca Murphy. We are actually on our way to start developing some asset management plans. So very excited about what we have to talk about here.
Thank you. Thank you. And Rebecca, did you manage to conquer your microphone trouble? Okay. Well, maybe later we'll get back. Get back to...
You may not have noticed. Doug just left. I think he's having some technical issues.
Yeah, so I guess just a note to Rebecca, I had the same problem on our last call. I do recommend you dial off and dial in again and choose the audio through computer option.
Oh, great, thank you. So we'll go through a quick recap of previous phases just to kind of give us a placeholder where we are right now, talk about the scope and focus for the next 9 months, and about schedule, deliverable, and coordination, and then have open discussion. So we started actually in 2016, and 2017 was our first formal workshop. In that first year, we focused on processes and developing documentation and business process models. This was quite a good journey. We looked at the capability maturity model for processes, and there are 5 stages of increased advancement and sophistication. And mostly the difference is where the knowledge is. At stage 1, it's in people's heads. In stage 2, it's shared with a team. And in stage 3, it's standardized. Do you guys still see my first slide, or do you see the maturity model?
It's the first slide, Cello.
Okay, let me change this. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'm not going to be able to do animation. It's a technical issue, but I'll just keep going like this. So we basically, when we did the process modeling, we went from level 2 to level 3, where we had our processes documented. We developed guidelines for business process modeling. We're using standard notation that is also part of ISO standard called BPMN, Business Process Model and Notation. And this notation allows us to dig into the details. You can see that some of these tasks, these boxes of kind of yellowish boxes, have a plus in them, and which means that there are business processes underneath that provide more detail. And these process models basically told us who is involved, what is the workflow, what decisions need to be made, what resources are required, the metrics that are impacted by the process, what data is required, where that data may reside. And the utility partners who developed models posted them to a common knowledge base. It's organized hierarchically, and we're eventually hoping that in the long term we'll end up with a model of how utility works. Right now, we've only modeled a small part of that. In second year, people used these models to implement improvements, to design and implement improvements. They would look at the as-is model, and then they would develop a model for a to-be state that would allow them, after this analysis, to design something that's improved. And that raises the maturity level from level 3 to level 4. This is from the CMMI Institute 5-step scale for maturity. And the product of that second year of the project were case studies. These ones are from Orange County, Florida, Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, Grand Rapids. There were more. They address different things such as pump station renewal and replacement, construction inspection process, cross-media electronic reporting to the for industry. So that was the second year. In the third year of the project, which is last year, we added a collaborative component, which for utilities to form groups and to work on specific areas of common interest. These are the utilities who participated, and these are the 4 areas of common interest. So asset management plans, developing asset management plans was one of these 4 areas. And Craig Edlund, he didn't turn on his camera, but he is here on the left, leading a talk in Portland workshop, Hillsboro, Oregon workshop that we had in September of last year. So this project included collaborative efforts among the network of peers. These are the photographs. In the middle is Kathleen Karkar looking at models of business case evaluation. And on the right side are Scott and Liv and Ed Wooden and others who worked on the CIP delivery model. So the products of last year were some additions to the business water sector value model. We've developed models for these 4 areas. And we also started thinking about recommended processes, artifacts, metrics, developed collaboratively. So these products become part of this database, this knowledge base. And what our intention is that in this next 9 months, we actually, utilities conduct improvement initiatives, which means that they would look at where we are, look at their current as a situation, and try to design improvements within an area that is of their interest and they would like to improve, even if there wasn't a project, something that they would like to focus on. So the track one that we have is when people work independently and they follow this methodology of documenting the current condition, identify items for improvement, designing improvements, and then planning and improving. So we're hoping that in this year, we will extend this collaborative effort with these improvement initiatives focused on these track 2 topics. So this specifically be for asset management. Since asset management is quite a big area, we are not expecting everybody to cover every and each aspect of asset management. As described in our year 2 work plan, it's actually year 4, but it's year 2 of our most current effort. They document for year 2, the work plan is available on our knowledge base already, and it details how we would go about it. So we have a data repository on OneDrive that everybody should have access to. If you don't have access to it, let me know. It means it kind of slipped through the cracks. And this is the path to the folders. As you can see, the root folder is Lift for Management UAIM, then it's Improvement Initiative, Developing Asset Management Plans. So it includes folders for each of the utilities that is going to be participating. So this is, if you're working on the project, contributing artifacts, documents, anything, this is a place where you could store it so that's then shared with everybody else. And this is kind of the collaborative aspect of it, although you may be addressing different parts of asset management, different subsets. And this is explained again a little bit more detail in the year 2 work plan. So, sorry. So the modeling that you do will also be then part of the overall water sector value model. These are different, this is level 3 for the water sector value model and where this will reside so that all the models remain within an overall architecture that makes sense. So I can take, if you're, some people on the call are quite familiar with this, some are not familiar at all, so I don't want to dwell on it now. But when time comes when you're going to want to post your models or get them reviewed, let me know, and I will kind of take you through the steps. So these are the generic steps and sort of generic schedule for the improvement initiatives in year 2. And we're starting in August. We're going to want to wrap things up in May. And basically, this is just a placeholder. Each of you will, depending on where they are, each of them will organize the activities to define the improvement initiatives. Some of them, you may have them defined already, and then organize and start these initiatives and develop the as-is detailed, BP models, business process models. You may have them already. Basically going through those 5 steps and implementing a plan. And our preference would be that you select a more limited area and then go a little bit deeper rather than try to go really wide, because we would like to demonstrate to each utility that the members who are participating in this project can come back in May and show some tangible improvement to their utility. And it's probably more realistic that something smaller could be done within 9 months than something that's really big. So we're not yes, sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Maybe it would be good just to quickly stop and take questions. And also we have Richard Windsor and Doug Stewart, who are now part. They could quickly introduce themselves, but maybe just very quickly, so the emphasis, as Cello just said, over the last year, we developed collaboratively a business process model that for asset management plans, but the idea now is to go implement things within business process model for all, or maybe just part of this process, tailoring it to your unique circumstances. And that would be the major focus, along with continued collaboration with the group.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. And Richard, would you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. Hello, everyone. I think I know quite a few of you on the call, but yes, hello. Good to be back in touch and see this work progressing once again. I found it, from my involvement last year on behalf of the Environment Agency and Team 100, extremely useful. A lot of what I was discussing, I bring back and talk to the likes of Rebecca Murphy and Patricia Nick about, who are colleagues at Team 100. About the work that had been set up in terms of getting to that standardized approach. So a lot of what Patricia and Rebecca now have in terms of the challenge is implementing that planning process into the work that we're doing here in the UK. So there's some real tangible effort that can be put into implementing what we progressed last year, and seeing how it actually works in reality as we go and address a couple of significant AMP updates here in the UK. So yeah, very, very pertinent, and good to see that this work stream's kicked off once again.
Great, thank you very much. Doug, have you conquered your technical difficulties over there?
Well, I've got my computer and my phone working together, but I can't just do it with a computer for some reason. So hopefully this is working now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Doug Stewart with the Portland Water Bureau. We're excited to continue on with this work this year. Mert Muftigal, who's also on the phone call here, was a huge part in pushing this forward with Craig last year. So we're excited to be part of the team.
Well, thank you. Has anybody else joined that I missed? Because we have 10 people now, and who hasn't had a chance to introduce themselves. Yeah, and I really appreciate Scott hitting the pause button, because once I get rolling, I become oblivious to things. So that's why we're a team.
He's not always that way, though.
So what we would expect to deliver by May, if possible, is an equivalent kind of set of documents, describing the improvement efforts in different places and what their scope was and stuff like that. Oh, these ones from previous phases are available. And also, if you've taken a part of that upper level model for asset management and really drill down into detail for one of the activities or to a part of that overall process, that's going to be another item that enriches our knowledge base. And any artifacts that you may contribute, we have some really wonderful documents that people have shared and just basically posted them to the knowledge base. And just one more slide. This is the last slide before we open up for discussion. And we created a collaboration platform, if you will, in Microsoft Teams. And each one of you should be should have access to this in your Microsoft Teams. If you have any trouble accessing it, please let me know. Just send me an email and I'll help you out. When you log into your Microsoft Teams, in the upper right corner, it should be right next to that circle with your initials or a photo if you've included it. In the upper right corner to the left of it should be a place that indicates what area you're in, and you would, when you click on that arrow, you should get a drop-down menu to give you an option to select a team called 9D Analytics, and if you click on that, you will be here. And not all of you are going to see all these channels. There are locks on some of these channels because they're private. So for example, right now, I've highlighted the asset management plans channel, and all of you should be already added to this channel, which means that you can post messages for each other. When you post messages, it'll go only to the members of this people who are working on developing asset management plans. You can share files. Here are tabs like utility partner shared documents. There's workspace. So I had a session. I had 3 sessions actually that I scheduled to introduce people to this collaborative environment. If you'd like to have access, there's a video that introduces 3 videos actually for each of the meetings. There's a video that would also allow people to ask questions. So if you're interested in, unless you're a Microsoft Teams wizard already, you may want to just like view one of these videos. If you want a link, I have sent it previously, but if you want me to resend it, please let me know. And final slide, so I can stop talking, is things that I thought we could touch on is the kind of things, get it back to you and get an idea what kind of things within the asset management plans you would want to take on within your organization. What are your goals and what you think you may be able to do between now and May? What support do you need from us, from Scott or from me, from Mike Barnett, from the project team, so that we can line up that support, make sure that you get what you need? We should also decide on a conference call, periodic conference call. We would propose bi-weekly for us to get together, and we can, one agency could say, okay, this is what we're doing, and then the other time another agency should say, this is what we're doing. Also, some thoughts about remote workshops, because maybe we want to organize instead of just a conference call, a remote workshop for the last couple of 3 hours and really get into depth of things. And also, if you have if you've tried to work in Microsoft Teams in this platform, it's kind of new to me as well a little bit. And if you have any comments. So these are the topics I was hoping that we would cover. And just want to mention that opposed to what we did last year, when everybody worked on the same model, this year, a lot of the work will be done individually by utilities. So instead of working all on the same model, each utility may work on a different part of the same model, but a lot of the work will be done kind of locally. And on the collaboration level, we'll be exchanging ideas and things like that. So let's go to the first. Are there any questions about this? Is this reasonable? Okay. So does anybody want to volunteer? Hey, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it all sounds, very reasonable, Cello. Just going back to the case study, so where we want to get to in May, is that if we're all working different on either our own, our own planning process or elements of that planning process that we worked on last year, is it feasible that we get to a point where we are actually peer reviewing as a group the elements that we've all worked on? So the case study is presenting where we think each utility has applied the process well or not. Does that sound like a reasonable case study output?
Absolutely. 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 I just added it.
Yeah, it does make sense, Richard, that as each of you are going off, and we're interested to hear any what your scope is, what you're planning to do, how you're applying it, and then this group, as you share it, could also do a peer review like that. That's really excellent comment.
Yeah, so we added that. Any other thoughts on any of the topics?
Cello, this is Craig.
Hey, Craig.
This is Craig. I suppose I could turn on my camera and you get to see my lovely green screen in the background because the meeting doesn't do any virtual. But a question for me on support from the project team. As lead, probably one of the things that consumed a lot of my time was just trying to set up meetings, take the notes, getting things organized, kind of administrative type things. Can the project team help with some of that? Because I know we're all very busy. Is that something that we can get help with from the project team?
Yes, in principle, yes.
No, not one of your in principle things.
Okay, yes. What we've done, and I think that we can certainly do our best on the project team, and I'd be happy to help. One of the new things that was introduced on the people topics, because we have 4 of these areas, is that the leads, because that the people topics are sort of in a phase where this was a year ago, so we kind of have to do that upfront work first. And the 3 leads on these efforts each basically engaged their executive assistant to be helping with these logistics. So what I think will make things a lot easier is that if we can get an agreement on, let's say, bi-weekly calls, and if we can set up these calls now for the next 9 months, and if we can then also decide we don't have to do it today, but decide on workshops in time, then it's really not a big load, and I'm perfectly happy to handle this because when I'm accepting this for asset management plan, I'm also accepting it for the other 3 initiatives. So yes, we would be glad to help to take this on, and there are some things that we can do to make it not as burdensome. I can tell you we've been trying to set up conference calls on the people side, and some of those teams have like 29 people in the group. It's impossible to schedule something. It's just impossible. So it'll be easier if we can agree all now. Okay, we're gonna talk every Thursday at this time, or we're gonna talk every Wednesday, and then we kind of have everybody reserve that slot, because trying to find availability is just really difficult. Does that answer your question? And Scott has something to say.
Yeah. So Craig, you already volunteered that somebody else should probably step up to be the lead. And I guess another way of interpreting what Cello was saying is that whoever does that, we will work with that lead to make your job easier and work out the, what that might look like. And I will tell you, since Susan Taylor volunteered was volunteered to do that for Lisa's workforce team, I wouldn't go ask her to do that. for this team. But if somebody ultimately wants to step up, to be the lead, then we can work with them. And Cello's right, we can standardize a lot of this and make it relatively simple.
So yes, well, I wrote this as an action item, Craig. Thank you for that. And the more we can decide up front, the easier it's going to be. And actually, this situation with the virus and people working from home and not in person, we will have some things that will be more complex, but also we are all encouraged to think in different ways. So before we had, like a 2-day workshop and a 4-day workshop where everybody flew someplace and was hanging out and was great. But maybe what we want to do this time is have shorter workshops, 2 hours or 2.5 hours, that don't take, and people don't have to travel, but then have them really tightly focused. So we're all of these things are kind of, and if we agree to these workshops ahead of time, then it makes these administrative things easier. And I completely understand we're not going to burden you with that, and we'll work this out somehow, and we will provide you support.
I don't know, this could be jumping the gun, but I do notice that we have 3 people from the UK involved. We do have some time zone issues, but it looks like you're investing some significant resources to the effort, Richard, and that may be something you guys might even want to take on.
Yeah, I think we'd be keen to. I know a lot of, because there is quite an involvement from us, it's going to be dependent on the timings working for the UK. So admittedly, it's a bit selfish, but we are very much putting a lot of effort into this over the next 6 to 12 months. And Rebecca are key to that. So I think there's capacity there to do it. I think just to and certainly a keenness too as well. So I'm sure, well, I know it's big boots and a big green screen to fill that Craig's leaving behind there, but I'm sure we can work on that for sure. I'd just like to say, I think what makes it a little bit easier with the way we're working now is if we can use that MS Teams platform. So I think what we didn't have last year was that essentially that forum to raise ideas, comments, or give notification if you can't make a session, etc. So I think that's probably answered now that we've got the individual channels as you've done, Cello. I think that might make things a little bit easier. But I mean, right now, I think this frequency, a fortnightly frequency, to continue that on from last year would be good. Interestingly, we're on Thursdays again. That's what we followed last year. So, my view would be to go with a bi-weekly Thursday call at around about this time if it was suitable for others.
Okay, so sorry. You know what? I like to type when people are watching. So can we make a decision that we can schedule bi-weekly calls at this time on Thursday, and I will send I will send an invite to all, and then if somebody protests, and if enough people protest and say they cannot make it, well, we may want to reconsider. But
yeah,
it's a little easier than trying to get sort of concurrence. We have more than 85 people now engaged in UAM in different things, and trying to line up all these meetings and be flexible to everybody. It's just Scott and I are finding it's just not easy. So as far as this time and bi-weekly, Does anybody on the call find this unreasonable or difficult, or have any different ideas that we should take into account?
Works for me.
Good. Good. Well,
Chill, it's Mert.
Yes.
I just wanted to add so that it's on the record with everybody else, but I know between Doug and I, like we've had this communication with some of the team members already, but I think we also, like Craig, have significant initiatives going on right now. So we still want to be here, at least, just from my perspective, be here because we have a lot of personal and professional sort of organizational history of developing AMPs. So I may not be able to make every call. However, if there are implementation questions, the trenches, what to do with when we encounter situation X, feel free to reach out, and we would be happy to share our experience.
okay. But in principle, if this time is not like much worse or much better than, it's not terribly inconvenient for you, right?
Time is okay. Yeah, it's early enough that no other meeting really gets scheduled here at this hour.
Well, we really wanted to schedule it at 11 o'clock at night in the UK. So I think they would definitely appreciate this earlier meeting time.
Yeah, happy to. That's good enough. Yeah, early enough here, but not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, having myself, Patricia, and Rebecca sort of followed on from having you and Doug in it last year, because I felt like there'd be better capacity if we had a few more participants in there. So if one of us can't make 1 week, then there's a bit of backup there. So I think that approach works. Which is why we can put a bit more effort into it. Yeah.
That's really wonderful, and that's great to hear. And what we can wait on that a little bit, and we can work with Richard and others. So I've been sending so many doodle polls that makes my head spin. So let us think about the benefit and the timing for possible remote workshops, because even WEFTEC is going to be fully remote. So we don't have that in-person thing, but we'll have to be sensitive to how do we find, what makes sense, what's a reasonable time, what makes, what's the timing and all that. So maybe that's something we can all think about between now and our call 2 weeks from now, and then because we don't have to do it. We don't have to make that kind of decision today.
I do have a question. What would be the alternative?
The alternative to the workshop,
Remote. Yeah.
Remote. There is no alternative.
Okay. So it's yes, remote or no workshops at all.
Well, we pretty much all the events the conferences are here in the U.S. we have a national convention that is remote. I've been working for the Monterey Jazz Festival for 40 years. They canceled this year. The WEFTEC is remote, so it's just based on what we know now. In-person meetings are, at least for the people in the U.S., are really not going to be a possibility that I see. And I don't know what others think. In my county, we're seeing 2,000 new cases every day. So I just don't they told us that we're not going to go back to the office until at least January. So it's just I don't see an alternative to working remotely.
It could be up to the group in terms of workshops, but if we were looking at 2 or 3 hours, it could be that halfway through the, this time period that, something could get organized, and then maybe another one, later. But it would be good to be able to go, do the kind of the review of the progress that everybody's making.
Yeah, so I think that's that's an excellent point. And what I wanted to do today is just kind of, put a bug in everybody's ear and say, okay, between now and our next call, let's consider what is a good timing. My gut feel is that it would be really sometime in October. In a couple of months, it would give us enough chance to kind of get into things and have some things to discuss. But it's not too late. When it comes to November, like between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it is not. It's just not going to happen very easily. And then, so the way I see it is, probably sometime in October, not a bad time. Then when we regroup and everybody's, back in January, and then again around the utility management conference, those are the times that I think would kind of make sense with the way the project schedule is laid out. But I don't want to impose this on people. When I send a doodle poll, when I send an email now, I'm getting all these responses. People are on vacation because it's August. So these are just my thoughts, but I want to bounce this off everybody else.
I think it sounds reasonable, Jelly. I think the key. I personally think we benefit from remote workshops for sure, but the key is probably not overkill and scheduling load so that we're not getting the right level of output from them. So if we were very clear on what workshops were going to be and what they were going to provide us in terms of, something at WEFTEC or even just at the end of this period with the case studies, etc., then that at least gives us a clear objective of what we want to cover in those workshops, which we can then evidence later on in the case studies as well.
That makes total sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes total sense, Richard. And we can communicate between now and the next biweekly meeting, and maybe have it. I find it easier to have a proposal, and then people can react to it. Sometimes it's not easy, especially in these remote phone calls with many people online. It's not easy to have a conversation like it would be if we're in a room. So if we have something that's proposed, then people can say, I like it, I don't like it. It's a little easier if there's a straw man. So between now and the next week, we can send emails back and forth and maybe propose a schedule for workshops, and then discuss it at the next meeting.
The next catch up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Richard, along the lines of what you were saying, it would be good to say, in overall terms, what would we be trying to, if we did one in October, for example, what would we be trying to accomplish versus one in January or February or in those kind of time periods. One thing that we did as part of our collaborative process before is we talked, for example, about what are the challenges that people are having in applying this to their own local environment, and what does what is the content beginning to look like, something like that, where focusing on the early game rather than the late game kind of results. Anyway,
that might be exciting. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if you have any comments on the Microsoft Teams, please let me know, because I would be happy to add tabs, to add functionality. I didn't want to overload it. So what I'll ask you is just go to Microsoft Teams, see if you can get, if you can start using this collaboration platform. If you have any, what your experience is, you can post messages for each other and stuff like that. So we really developed kind of a collaboration and exchange of ideas there. And and then you can send me ideas about what kind of things you'd like me to add, and we can talk in a couple of weeks. We can discuss how to improve it to better meet your needs.
Hey, Cello, this is Doug.
Hi.
We use Microsoft Teams at work almost predominantly all the time, and I think it's a wonderful platform, and I would encourage us to use Microsoft Teams even for these calls. I don't know what happened with GoToMeeting this morning, but I could never get my computer audio to work, so I'm on my phone also. So, and I don't have that issue with Microsoft Teams, so I'm a big fan of it. I have a second comment. We had 4 teams last year, and Mert and I participated pretty heavily in 3 of those 4. And we've added 3 more teams this year that Mert and I want to participate in. And so for us, it's going to be an issue of how do we take our very limited time and spread it even further than we did last year. So when we're starting to lock in specific calls every week or every other week, our issue is going to be which ones do we participate in on any given week, because we can't do them all. So if we could, find a way to sort of organize these calls sort of on your end so they're not overlapping, that would be really helpful for me.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, yes. No problem at all. I will make the invite for our future biweekly calls in Microsoft Teams. No problem with that at all. If you'd like, we can also include tabs with notes. I'm very happy to do that. And in what we're going to be doing is using Microsoft Teams not only to set up meetings, but also for allow us an easy access to documents and stuff like that, because both Microsoft Teams and OneDrive actually lay on top of SharePoint. So we can do some mapping and creative things so people don't have to, go through a million folders and it's all organized. But I will need your input to improve that. And point taken, there's always a history, why we're using GoToMeeting. And it was introduced by WRF, and I just kind of stuck with it. But good point. From now on, we'll use Microsoft Teams.
No, Doug, you raised an underlying issue, which is what's the level of engagement and involvement in this team or other teams? And while the overall goal for this team, for example, would be to take the model that exists, basically adapt it to your situation, and then do, really improve your own operation, in terms of developing and using asset management plans, and we make that into a case study and share it. That would be the biggest goal. But there are some people who would be participating at a lower level, where they want to stay in touch with it. They want to hear what you're doing, but they're not quite ready to do that yet. So we're acknowledging that this is scalable, but we're hoping that there's significant work that goes on by team members within their own organization to enhance what they have or to develop different parts of the business process.
Okay.
That
All right.
sound
So
right, Doug?
It does, Scott. I guess I'm also sort of looking back on the work that we did with the enterprise risk team last year, and we started out sort of gangbusters with a group of people that were really interested. And by the time we were sort of halfway through the project, it was difficult to get more than 1 or 2 people to even get on the calls with us. And so we ended up pushing a lot of that sort of down the road ourselves to have a deliverable. And I would hope that not only this team but all the other teams that there's a bit more sort of active participation from people, and it doesn't end up being just 1 or 2 agencies doing all the work and then coming and presenting to everybody, you know, at the end of the day. So I'm a little cautious about spreading everybody too thin, and making sure that if we're going to be on a team, that we're committed to be a team member and participate.
Yep.
That's very reasonable, and you know, I think that that would be good. That'd be really good. What was happening also last year, for some reason, several people who have been participating in UAIM early, they're being like promoted. I don't know why, and they're being overloaded with additional responsibilities. So we will also, I think, have to consider how organizations who participate make it easier for those folks to participate, so that if a person who's involved now, and I have a list of people where this happened, they were really engaged, and then, you know, often these types of folks who are really engaged get noticed within their organizations and they move up, and then we have to think about succession planning on the project as well to keep continuity. And some utilities are at a different kind of level in terms of maturity of their own processes and things. So some of them really enjoy being the observer, and we don't want to cut that out. On the other hand, how to balance that with very few utilities doing most of the work, it's really difficult. But we'll just keep trying to keep everybody energized, and every person on this call can do a lot to energize their own utility. And if there's something that the project team can do, just let me know. So yes, a very good point from Richard on the chat. And what makes this project valuable is that it's the energy and the smarts of people like you, all of you on the call. And if there's anything that the project team can do to help that, we'll do it. And I see that some people are messaging they have to jump on. They have other commitments. I'm going to stop the recording.